Well, hello, listeners and viewers. Welcome to the 7th episode of The Hive of Season 1, a podcast that promises to get you buzzing about challenging business stories and the future of humans in a world obsessed with artificial intelligence. I'm your host, PJ Sherman, founder and director of Black Bee Group and Skilled Up. Black Bee optimizes your LinkedIn and website to turn eyeballs into leads, and Skilled Up, UK CIC, is a social enterprise that is leading the battle against the UK's skills gap crisis. Now, joining me today is Rob Purle, a utility warehouse authorised partner since 2013, showing households options to save hundreds each year on their bills and showing individuals how to add thousands each year as a side income alongside what they already do. Rob has always been self-employed and never had a job. He started off working for his family, where he spent 9 years manufacturing timber garden buildings before moving into the world of software development, where he spent 24 years. According to Rob, utility warehouse is the best thing he has ever done. What a recommendation. Welcome, Rob. It's good to have you on board.
Hello, PJ. Good to be here.
This is long overdue, and again, apologies for rescheduling 17 times, but we got it in the end. Now, I've been really excited to talk to you because, of course, we know each other through success networking. There you go, Andrew, as a plug for the business there. But I kind of know a bit of your story, and it's a real interesting and inspiring one. So I really want to dive into your backstory first before we go on to, current situation. Can you just give us a sort of timeline of your start you had in business leading up to where you are now, and we'll sort of take it from there?
Well, as you alluded to in the introduction there, I've never had the job.
Yep.
Always been self-employed. Part of the reason for that is, as a kid, I was painfully shy, completely lacking in self-confidence, completely lacking in self-belief. That's something which has actually tracked me throughout my life. And as such, I didn't go to university. The thought of that terrified me. Crikey, somebody might ask me my opinion on something. And then the thought of going for a job interview just terrified me. I couldn't think of a reason why anybody would want to employ me. So I think almost out of find me something to do, my mother, my stepfather and myself set up a business manufacturing timber garden buildings. Yep. And we started in that. I was very much in the background to begin with. But we used to obviously have a show site, and people used to come and buy stuff, and got used to chatting to people on the show site. And I was always a bit of a wit, bit of a wag, if you like. But I used to hide my insecurities behind humour.
Yep.
And after a while, yes, there was perhaps one or two tensions in the family, but I decided to strike out and do something else. I had not a clue what I might do. We had, in the interim, bought a computer.
Ooh.
Run our business on back in the 1980s.
Very techy.
An Amstrad something or other, had a 20 megabyte hard drive, and I got quite handy with that. But then we had it upgraded, and the chap who upgraded it also wrote us a piece of sales software.
Mm.
And he was the sort of guy who would encourage you to roll your sleeves up and have a go. He now lives in New Zealand. Fantastic chap called Stuart Larson. And his father had a business in Lincoln. And one day Stuart said to me, I think a little tongue-in-cheek, you probably know more about programming this than I do now. Passing comment, but it kind of set a seed. So when I decided to move on, I decided I would create database applications for people. That's what I spent the next 20 odd years doing. Again, self-employed. I always felt that I had the benefit of what I did was I had primarily come at computing as a user and didn't have any of the technical jiggery pokery in the background. I was all self-taught.
Yeah. That
in itself didn't help because I always felt a bit of an imposter.
Okay.
Why should I hadn't had the training, I hadn't got the qualifications, hadn't been to university, but I was pretty handy at what I did, but never really gave myself credit for it.
Yeah.
And that's how I went on. And then eventually I was, I used to go networking for my software business, and I'd come across, UW, I'd come across multi-level marketing, and I actually tried it back in the 1990s probably before you were born. And then we tried it. Fantastic products, very highly priced. I had to convince everybody that these are a good idea to buy these products. And I found it hard work. I was not comfortable in that kind of sales environment. Didn't like it at all. And it fed all my insecurities.
Yeah.
I did like the principle of network marketing, though. That sort of went down very well. And so when I came across UW, I kind of avoided eye contact with people out networking until Frank joined our networking group one day, and I sat down and had a cup of coffee with him. He showed me how it worked, and I thought, this is great. This is brilliant, because I don't have to convince anybody it's a great idea to have electric.
Yeah.
I don't have to ask them if they like the idea of having broadband or a mobile phone. They know this stuff. They just want to get it for as low price as possible. And with UW, we can do that. And all of a sudden, I thought, wow, and next month, I don't have to come back to you and say, would you like another bag of electric? That's not how it works. So it just struck me as a great idea, a win-win-win, if you like. Win, company gets a customer. Win, customer saves money. And win, I get paid every month when the customer pays the bill. What's not to like? I thought I liked some of that. So I gave it a go. All my insecurities came to the fore, and I was a car crash.
Oh, God.
I would fumble and stumble over everything, and took me a year. I go on the training, and I think, I really wasn't comfortable doing what they suggested I do on the training. So I tried it my own way, and it didn't work. I was horrible. And several times in that first year, I thought, I just can't do this. I'm going to have to pack it in.
Yeah.
And there's this little naggy voice at the back of my head that said, well, clearly there are people out there introducing customers, and I can see there are people joining other people's teams. So out there are people who want what we've got, absolutely for definite. So I must be able to find some.
Yeah, absolutely.
All that kept me going in that first year. And then I went on another training, and I decided that I would do something different this time. This time, I'm going to go out and do what they suggest I do.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, it's almost like they knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, interesting that. Yeah.
Sure. And it made one hell of a difference. And our business started to grow. And the personal development that you get, there's one guy in this business who gave me an hour of his time. He's a professional coach anyway, but he gave me an hour of his time, and he explained to me from what he knew about me exactly why he knew I could go out and be a success with a UW opportunity, and set me on a path of personal development, which got me at last to age 60, where I eventually got out of my own way, got over myself, and liked myself, respected myself, and actually considered myself worthy of success.
Yeah, well, good for you, Rob. Yeah, and you're clearly demonstrating that now. And what I find most interesting is, you've demonstrated that journey and not giving up on yourself, knowing that there is a way to get around anything like the imposter syndrome and things like that, because most of us go through that at some stage in our careers, and it's usually when things aren't exactly going our way, and we think, I'm seeing it a lot with people in the job market, very good professionals who know exactly what they're talking about. They've got a track record of success, but because they've spent 6 months without a job, they're starting to question, if actually it is real what they know and the value they add. So, it's important, like you said, to stick with it. What I want to go back to before we talk about that sort of instrumental change in your mindset there, let's just go back, rewind the clock to you talking about imposter syndrome and not wanting to go to university in case somebody asked you a question. Now, it's well known that opening a business requires a lot of confidence and personal determination. Why was it less scary for you to go down that route than actually going through the interview process and getting a job? Talk to me about that, because that's really fascinating.
Yeah, that is an interesting one, isn't it? Because when you are self-employed, it's down to you, and it's just it's just down to you. On the other hand, I didn't have to justify myself to get started. I didn't have to go and make a case. for myself. I could just start. And that's probably the biggest factor in the difference. If I'd had to go and sit in front of somebody at an interview, it would have been cringingly awful, because I just had no self-confidence. I'd have given such naff, bland answers to questions. And if I'm honest, if you'd asked me as a kid what I wanted to do, if I'm truly honest, I didn't really want to do anything.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah.
I was quite happy just not doing a lot, to be honest. And so it was hard for me to get motivated in any particular direction.
Yeah, I understand that. I suppose it's that element of keeping control of your future and what you want to do, like you said, without justifying it to somebody else. But also, as entrepreneurs, if you work for somebody, you're put in a box and you have to work with those rules of your employer. I suppose, like you said, it's similar to me. As a business owner now, I can make the rules, I can look at the direction, and that's where I flourish. Having worked for people before, I've always felt frustrated by the box, and some people work very well within the box, but other people, like you said, like us, tend to really flourish when we get to make our own rules. Something I really wanted to look at as well is that transition from manufacturing timber garden buildings to software development. Now, they're completely different. And I think you mentioned at a networking event, Frank introduced you to the whole world. What was the pivotal moment there from you to go from manufacturing to software development? That's an interesting one. See where your head was at the time.
Well, my thought process at the time, and I can encapsulate it very, very simply. My thought process was, what can I do? I know I'll write databases for people. Now, I didn't think really much deeper about it than that.
Okay.
I knew I wanted to change. It wasn't until very, very much later. And again, this is another aspect of my life which I beat myself up about over the years. Didn't go to university, did timber building manufacture, flip-flop to software development, flip-flop to utilities. Where's the consistency? Where's the thread? And I didn't discover that until my late 50s, when I had an opportunity to do something called a motivational map. Now, I'd never heard of these before. Mm-hmm. Probably you've probably heard them in recruiting, I'm sure, but and you've come across personality profiling.
Yeah.
Loads and loads of multi-choice questions, and you don't give them any thought. You just go with your gut. Motivational map, very similar thing, but it this particular one that we did scored us on 9 markers. And the idea was it highlight the sort of things which motivate you, and more importantly, just as importantly, the sort of things that don't motivate you.
Yeah.
So you can look for a career or an activity which feeds your motivators and avoids your demotivators. Well, I'm the sort of personality that I'm not somebody of extremes. So I didn't have some really high markers, but there was a general slope, if you like. And my 2 strongest ones were something called spirit and searcher. I think spirit is wanting to plough your own furrow, do your own thing, be in control of your own destiny. And searcher was being part of a cause, making an impact, making life better. Now, when I look at my life under that lens, well, I've always been self-employed. I've always wanted, perhaps had that unrecognized desire to do my own thing, be my own boss and all the rest of it. So I have control of my life in that way. And that's what I did. Exactly that with the timber buildings, exactly what with the software, and it's exactly where we're at with UW. And then the searcher, they're making an impact. That's a different one, because we didn't just make any old timber buildings. We made timber buildings that people were proud to have in their garden.
Yeah.
And we had a great big badge that we put on the front of it, and people would ask us for an extra one that they could put on the back so that people could see it over the garden fence. They wanted people to know that they'd got one of these. And we gave an exceptional level of customer services. With the day they ordered it, delivery might not be for 6 weeks if it was a special of some description, and we'd give them the day and the time that it was going to be delivered, and keep them completely informed. Lots of things like that. We in some ways, locally, we were market leaders in the type of things that we introduced.
Yeah.
Not that we recognise that particularly. So there's that, having something that people could be proud of. With my software, I used to work extremely closely with my clients.
Yep.
And really get under the skin of the business and really become enmeshed in the whole business. And my whole thought process was creating software that would make their lives easier, and take away the laborious stuff that the computer was very, very good at doing. So they could spend more time on the relationship with their clients, but also because of the efficiency of the tech, their clients would find them more professional, more efficient, and doing a better job for them. And that's how it worked. But the contracts, the projects that I worked on tended to be very long term. My very, very first client in March 1997 was still a client at the end of 2019 when I stopped doing my software.
Wow, that speaks volumes.
I had invoiced them every month in the interim, and never once did I have to chase them for money. They're a fantastic client, still very, very good friends. And I used to get really good friends with the people I work with as well, because that's just the nature of how we worked. Very close interaction. So it's all about making that better. And the UW opportunity is all about making life better for people. For customers, it's just saving them so much money, so they can just take a little bit more control back particularly in these difficult financial times. But for the people who want it, they maybe want that additional income stream and have that just backstop of income just in case life goes a bit pear-shaped. It gives them that, and it just transforms people's lives. So on that thread, everything I have done, what I have done, has varied greatly, but the underlying thread of why I've done it has been consistent throughout, and that gave me a lot of peace of mind when I eventually realised that. So I think for when people, look at themselves, it's not just what they do, but it's why they're doing it, and that's important.
Absolutely. I like that consistency of, like you said, the spirit and the searcher throughout your career, looking to help people, but retaining that freedom that you look for to make your own destiny. And it's something also that I do talk to my clients a lot about, is that, what's your story? Let's talk about the story, because it's the greatest sales technique ever. We connect with stories, right back to when we first discovered fire, sitting around the campfire, talking about stories. It's important. What I want to look at next is, I believe you said his name was Chris, the coach that really turned your mindset on its head. Talk to me about what he did to help you do that, and what was that spark then, really, to turn it into what you're doing successfully now at UW? Well,
just to give you a little bit of background about Chris. Chris is another UW partner, hugely successful.
Yeah.
He is completely financially secure as a result of the business that he's built. And it was at a meeting that we were at, he stood up and offered anybody who wanted it at the meeting an hour of his time on Skype, whatever that was. Just let him know. I don't exactly know how many people took him up on it. Probably not many, but I thought, this man's hugely successful. Why not? Let's go and have a chat. And he did. And it was a cold January evening. And we'd met a few times. He knew a little bit about me. And he did two things. He unpicked our UW business, which was like teeny tiny at the time, so that didn't take very long. But he unpicked the inside of my head, and he laid out step by step all the different aspects that he knew about me. He explained clearly why that was a benefit for me in going forward to build a UW business. And it wasn't an instant thing, but it set me on that path.
Yeah.
And it was just somebody saying, look, you're in business, you understand the ups and downs of business, so you're going to have up downs and down up days and down days with UW. You can get over that. It's just little things like that. And you don't spend a lot of time in the presence of Chris Williams without thinking you can go and conquer the world. He's that sort of guy. Really good guy. I am a huge debt of thanks because that hour was pivotal in my life, and it's
Yeah.
one of the key reasons that I say UW is the best thing I've ever done.
I'd like to touch on that as well in a second, but yeah, Chris, if you're listening, I'd love to get an hour of your valuable time as well, because it sounds like you're transformational with what he does. Does he do keynote speeches and motivational speeches, or is he more of a one-to-one sort of coach?
I think he's more of a he does group corporate stuff.
Yeah.
But he does a lot of one-to-one as well, I think, and he does obviously does stuff within UW. He's a brilliant goal-setting trainer.
Yeah, amazing. But that's it. Kudos to you for identifying that things weren't working and taking an action to speak to somebody that was clearly successful in what they did. Because, I've worked in sales a long time, and you always had those individuals who went, I'm going to put my ego aside. Something's not working. Let's talk to the people who are doing it well. How do I improve? But then you've got the other side that go, no, it's the system, it's the leads, it's the customer. You've actually gone, no, there's something not right here. Let's fix it, which is...
Well, I always remember something that was told to me a long time ago, and you've probably heard it. It's a bit of a cliche, but when you point the finger of blame, there are always three pointing back at you. And it's just a reminder to, if something's not going right, before you go around shooting blame off everywhere else, just make sure your own house is in order. And usually the answer lies within.
100%. Yeah. Definitely some words of wisdom there.
Yeah.
Now, just to go back to your point about Utility Warehouse, UW, you've said already, you said it's the best thing that you've ever done. Why? I'm just going to open it. Why?
Well, as I've already touched upon, it's a fundamental... My involvement within UW and the people that are involved within UW are a fundamental part of me getting over myself and actually coming to like and respect myself, and gaining that self-like and self-respect. If I don't earn another penny from it, what I've got from it, money can't buy that. That's just immeasurable. The company themselves, in the 10 years we've been involved, been absolutely brilliant. They don't get everything right because it's a big corporate, but they work hard at getting it right. And they're best in class, really. They've won so many awards for customer service and value for money and all that sort of thing, because they rely on word of mouth. Now, if you're going to rely on word of mouth and personal recommendation, kind of makes sense. You've got to be good at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday they broke through their 1 million customer barrier.
Yeah, it's a big milestone.
Big milestone. Taken them 26 years to get that far. 30% of that has come in the last 3-4 years.
Wow.
That's the growth that they're on at the moment. And, their goal is to double it within the next 5 years. And the track that they're on, they very likely will.
That's excellent.
So it's great to be a part of it. It's an exciting part. As a company, they're very people focused. And because of the way their business model, because we work out independently as teams, there's very much a focus on personal development. And that's almost a cliche word in itself, personal development. But working on yourself, investing in yourself, upskilling yourself is one of the best things that you can do. And I've read a lot of books, I've attended trainings, I've associated, as we've touched on, people who are already successful. Yeah. If you want to be successful, who are you going to talk to? The person who's already done it, or the naysayer at the end of the bar on a Friday night? I know which one I'm going to choose.
Yeah, absolutely. So the lesson then we could probably take from that is focus less on the short-term monetary results and more on that mid to long-term self-development, which will ultimately increase that financial reward moving forward. Sort of thing.
Anything takes time. Anybody who's an overnight success is usually taking years to get to that night.
Yeah.
And that's just a truism, really. One of the key things within UW, with any business, really is consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you do it consistently. And one of the reasons people don't achieve necessarily the goals that they set in life is they don't do the activity required to get those goals consistently for long enough.
Yeah. And looking for those short, quick wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that before. Okay. Well, thanks for that, Rob. That was a great insight. Really, really, really inspiring. Like I said, I knew I wanted to do this with you for a long time because of that story. It's super inspirational and some really good learns there for people before getting into business. What I want to look at next is the AI side of things. Now, given your background, I'm sure you have a lot of opinions about what it looks like now and how the landscape is going to look moving forward. So I always start with the question: what's your opinion on the current narrative around AI?
Well, as with any tech, tech at its best should be invisible. Shouldn't really get in the way of your life.
Yeah,
And anybody can, really relate to that if they've ever used a computer. When it's working and it's up to speed and all the rest of it, brilliant. The minute something slows down and you're sat there drumming your fingers, waiting for it to happen, it's getting in the way. It's as frustrating as anything.
yeah,
And I think AI is simply another part of that evolution. There's all this worry about it's going to take over the world and all the rest of it. Well, if you're worried about the machine taking, just unplug the damn thing. It'll soon slow it down. My interaction with AI hasn't been huge as yet, but
okay,
what I have done, it's hugely impressive. And I think overall it's a positive thing, and it will open up more opportunities.
yeah, yeah,
New industries will start, or new things will happen that we haven't even thought about yet.
yeah.
A new revolution is underway, and because of the nature of AI, it's going to happen really fast. So we better get our jogging shoes on.
You heard it here first. Yeah, get upskilled in
Yeah.
AI. You mentioned there
And
that you,
I would add to that actually.
yeah.
People might think they've got to become an AI expert, and I've always said to people when I've been to see them about software, they've been a little bit embarrassed saying I don't know much about computers. Well, I've usually gone to see them driving my car, and if in my car I can drive it, I can check the tire pressures, I can fill up the washer bottle, and I can do that dippy thing with the oil. That's about it. Anything else, it goes to the garage, and I liken that to what people should be. If you've got enough knowledge just to be able to check the tire pressures and fill up the washer bottle, other than that, you just need to use it. You'll be absolutely fine. You don't have to be an expert. If the tech is trying to make you be an expert, it's not good tech.
Yeah, yeah, I'd echo that because a few guest speakers and I have spoken about AI naturally, and we've said that it's just another tool. It's like
Yeah.
Spell check on Word or a system that just checks applications. That is still part of it. It's just another tool to help us speed up the processes. So yeah, you don't have to be an expert, but still embrace it and think about how it can improve your lives and your efficiency. You mentioned that you do kind of use it now, but what have you used it for? Is it more personal? Is it more business? And does UW use it at all?
UW don't overtly use it particularly yet. Whether what will come down the line, I have no idea. I use it probably the most often times I used it is on a Zoom call. They have a new functionality where once you finish the call, it will send you an email with not a transcript, but a summary of what was discussed,
Oh, that's great.
and it is scarily accurate. And not only that, at the end of it, there'll be a list of bullet points of what the actions were that were agreed.
Oh, okay. I need to switch to Zoom.
That is
That is a sales pitch for Zoom.
that is pretty cool because there's always something. Even if you take notes, there's always something that you've missed.
Yeah.
And yes, it gets the odd bit a bit round its neck, but very little. It's very, very accurate. That's my most common interaction. I've used a little bit of ChatGPT and the Google one, Bard, which is now called Gemini. And actually, you can put a question in there, and it'll write computer code for you.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
But again, it's like when people say, "Oh, use it to do your posts." on LinkedIn and what have you, but you've got to go back and make sure it's the grammar's right and it's not Americanized and all that sort of thing. Same with anything. You've got to kind of know what you're doing to make the best use of the tool.
Absolutely. That's something I say to clients as well. It's like, okay, if you're going to use it properly. Here's my guide. Don't sound like ChatGPT, because you're going to be part of the 9 out of 10 that are doing exactly the same thing. And there's no real added value then. And that's going to damage your brand, not help it. So there you have it, watchers and listeners, the 7th episode of The Hive. I hope you found it fascinating and inspiring. If you did, please do subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to us on, and hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you're watching. Thanks again for joining me, Rob. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, PJ. Thank you.
Of course. Have you got any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think just thinking about what we've been talking about and reflecting back on, my own past. If I was going forward now, I always used to worry about, do I know enough? Am I qualified enough? And if I've learned anything, is that when people are maybe recruiting or looking to work with somebody, the qualifications and the knowledge are perhaps less important than the attitudes of the person, because you can teach skills as long as they've demonstrated they've got that aptitude, but you can teach the skills. So when you go for an interview, are you on time? It's always a good one. Are you smartly presented? Have you done your research on the company that you're going to see? Can you have a sensible conversation? Are you showing an aptitude and a desire and an attitude? Because the key question that anybody is really asking is, what's in it for me? How are you going to make my life easier? Because that's what anybody wants. That's ultimately what any business, what anybody wants. How are you going to add an improvement to my life, to my business? Because if you look like you're going to be a bit hard work, I don't necessarily, I don't care how clever you are. If you're going to be an awkward devil, I'm not really interested. So if ever you think about, am I qualified enough? Just have a look at, well, what's my attitude? Am I willing? Am I willing to learn? Am I going to be there on time? Am I going to be presentable? All the little things which are nothing to do with the subject in hand, but are really vitally important, and all to do with those interpersonal soft skills, if you like.
Absolutely. Something I always used to coach hiring managers on: will before skill any day. Those behaviours are so important. But yeah, thanks again, Rob. It was a pleasure having you on. And thank you again, listeners and watchers, for tuning in. We will see you on the next episode. Bye for now.